interests have really overtaken the dedication to social responsibility and welfare. So when people want to earn money, do they have social concerns? This is what we talk of. Sometimes we wonder whether journalism has remained as journalism in the conventional sense of the term. Today, I must confess, journalism is more of an event management than the real journalism. Why I tell you is, I have seen how journalism started moving from commitment to the society. In fact, I remember way back in 1970s, the then Prime Minister Mrs. Indira Gandhi talked about a committed press. When we talked about committed press, then we meant something which was different. We said committed, we asked the question, committed to whom? Committed to politicians, or committed to people in power, or committed to the society? Today, we have very little choice because we are not committed to people. I ask another question. If we are not committed to people, how can we expect the people to commit themselves to media? And reading as a habit, viewing as a habit, listening as a habit, how can we expect them? So if a person is not loyal to a medium of his choice, then what will be the future of that medium? Today, when I see things happening, I tell you, this is a fact, this is real, you can make a reality check. Most reporters, correspondents, and editors are no longer performing their duties. They have become ad collection agents. Their main job is to collect advertisements. Can you just imagine a newspaper editor going around every day to see how much advertisements he can collect, and also his commission of 10%. So this is what is happening. So the tribe of conscientious journalists, editors, I really mean, the tribe has disappeared. Now what kind of journalists we are seeing? No, maybe there are exceptions. I don't say everybody is like that, but unfortunately, the majority of journalists are no longer committed to their profession. Business interest has replaced journalism as a service. So the future of small and medium newspapers appears to be very bleak, particularly in the post-COVID times. I have seen how the deterioration has taken place. Today, advertisement is the main concentration of all the newspapers. Without the government support, most of the newspapers may not survive. I will come back to that a little later to tell you how it is like in the new economic system that we are pursuing or we have already adopted. Imagine just few years ago, we talked about, till last year, why few years, we talked of India being one of the countries in the world where newspaper reading was becoming more and more popular. The circulation was rising, and we said, this is a silver lining on the horizon. But unfortunately, now things have gone wrong. So, what has happened meanwhile? It's a very difficult situation to assess. I think particularly those who are interested in doing research in this particular aspect, I think will can bring greater insight into the situation that is prevailing right now. When I saw one of my local newspapers suspended its publication for 3.5 months, I was wondering whether it had folded up. Fortunately, it has started, publishing, which is something which we will have to welcome. But what is happening in the overall situation? Unfortunately, there is a decline in every aspect of print journalism. I'm not a cynical person, but this is my fervent observation. This is a challenge and this is an issue before Indian media, particularly print media. So when the management is taking over the reins of everything, content, audience, then what will happen to real journalism? Where is the freedom to write? Where is the freedom to publish? And of course, I am not talking about the freedom to circulate, because there is a theory right now. More circulation means more loss to the concerned media house. So I am told by some insiders of some media houses that they deliberately restrict the circulation to a certain extent. Sometimes we hear more about readership, not about circulation, because more circulation means more investment, more expenditure. So there is a profit line which decides how we should be, projecting our newspapers. Then coming back to the content aspect, I must tell you, there is a cheap imitation of Western newspapers in terms of production, designing, and also news values. So this is where I am really worried. Why should we read more about other countries when they don't bother about us? So this is where I am really worried. Crime and entertainment have more space and time in Indian media. Crime, what is happening, a murder is more important than a positive news story. We have inculcated among our readers, our audience, what it should be like. We give so much of prominence, so much of importance, and we highlight everything in such a manner. It is nothing but repetition of yellow journalism that prevailed in the United States almost 100 years ago. So, why should we give so much priority to it? I know technologically everything is well designed, and in the case of electronic media, they are produced very well. It is all technology. But when I talk about the contents, what is the quality of the content? This is very important. Quality cannot be replaced by technical excellence. Technology is only a supporter. But unfortunately, we think that a well-designed newspaper or a well-produced television program or a radio program can be equal to its content. No, quality you just cannot compromise. Unfortunately, triviality is given more important. It is giving headache to people like us who worry about, the important issues in human life. Daniel Boorstin, a man who talked about the media, even though he was not a media person, He wrote about media as, the people who create pseudo events. And what is happening? Disneyization of media contents. See, you can understand, today we talk of fake news, deep fake news. Why? These are not, new. Earlier also they existed. We are giving new names to them. The nomenclature is changed. So, even when it happens, who is the sufferer? The media user. I don't want to use the word consumer because many people talk about media users as consumers. The very word consumer has a different context and different connotation. And the next one is lack of professionalism. It is the most important issue right now for Indian media. This is an issue that will have to be tackled at the highest level of the profession. The professional training given to media persons needs higher benchmarks than what we have right now. I'm really sick of certain things which I see on television channels, and also the way in which the stories are written in print media. It is something which we will have to worry about. So, professionalism is not only writing, it is also the ethics, the morality, the way in which we consider social responsibility and social commitments. There is an allegation that Indian media have obsession with politics. Of course, some people justify it by telling that it is a pre-independence phenomenon. But are not many issues concerning human problems there? Yes, we have to think about the human issues. See, for example, corruption in our system. We have accepted it as part of our life. Why should we not fight against it? Why should we not expose it? I'm not telling that we are not exposing, but at the other end of the side, you must say that it is eating into the vitals of our society. So the new generation and the new generation of professionals and the new generation of audience of media, they have to compel media to think differently. Of course, sometimes we say people will accept whatever we give, and it is their problem either to accept it or not to accept it. See, the catharsis, the opium of the media contents, particularly when it comes to trivial contents given day in and day out by the media. Why I am talking about all these things is, this is not a new phenomenon. This has already taken place in the United States. People like Ben Bagdikian and Daniel Boostein and several others, all of them criticized the American media for what it was doing. But today, we have to, in India, think of a new approach to journalism. It is very easy to imitate others. But how to move away from the Western influence and chart our own course is the question. And we have been talking of specialized journalism. But I tell you, some people joke, in particularly some public spirit, that journalism is not journalism, it is generalism. But we have to consider these two aspects. There are people who would like to have specialized contents, and also there are people who would like to know about what is happening in general terms. And television channels in particular, I'm talking about what is happening right now, have become an aberration to professional journalism. I'm sorry to say, if you know how to speak, you can become a journalist. The camera takes care of it. You speak something, whatever that comes to your mind, go on repeating whatever you have been telling, that becomes a kind of journalism. I'm a little bit worried because when we were taught differently in the media houses. But today, I don't know what is happening. It is a fact. Then the next issue is lack of community orientation. See, this is another important point which we will have to note. So, what is community media? Again, the problem is we are always thinking in terms of what the Western people have said. See, we don't have communities in the sense that, the Western communities are totally different. And in India, there is nothing called as community in the Western sense of the term. So, when people talk about community radio, community television, community newspapers, I sometimes wonder what kind of community we have to think of. So that's why, for all practical purposes, I think of community radio, telling that it is more entertainment oriented than education oriented or information oriented. I have seen the community radio stations in other countries, and their existence is also nominal if I tell you the truth. But they try to be community oriented. They make an effort. So this is where I would like to disagree with the concept of community in media, because we don't have community newspapers. If you think that a district or a town newspaper is a community newspaper, it cannot be really considered as a community newspaper. Similarly, community radio and community TV. Let us accept the fact that mostly the Indian media are entertainment oriented. Nowadays we have started talking about newstainment. You see, imagine newstainment, entertainment news has become entertainment. So let us, designate television as basically a medium of entertainment interspersed with news. If news becomes entertainment, then you can understand how it will be like. Then the other concept which troubles me a little bit is citizen journalism. Some television channels have popularized this concept of television journalism, where everybody can become a journalist by reporting. But what are the professional yardsticks for this? If a person is seriously professional, he will understand the hazards of this kind of journalism, which can be used for, personal revenge. So there should be a process of filtering. There should be a process of standardization where stories are vetted and checked and then put on the air. The same thing with print media also. See, the whole concept, devoid of professional angle, is quite dangerous because there are two things which are to be considered when we talk of citizen journalism. One is gatekeeping, the other one is credibility. The media credibility should not be compromised just to promote a different concept. I am not against it, but at the same time, we have to be on guard. So we have to think on those lines. Coming back to the editorial freedom that was, exercised by Indian journalists, particularly the print long ago, I remember a quote by E.R. Mankekar, one of the renowned journalists of the country. He said, "The press is free, but not independent." You can imagine, I am talking of what he said some 60, 70 years ago. But what is happening today is, I can simply change the phrase that media are neither free nor independent, because we have electronic media today dotting every corner of the horizon. So when we don't have freedom within, why should we talk about freedom without? So there is now a kind of atmosphere where you need not worry too much about the idea of freedom. It is always so the world over. I am not talking of India only. The ruling classes, the political ideologies of the ruling classes, they always affect the media from without. It is not new. The story of journalism is nothing but the story of struggle and conflict. So, commercial compulsions of the media houses have totally eroded this concept of freedom. So, corporatization, you must read Herbert Schiller, and of course, there are critics of Herbert Schiller who say that he was talking from a particular political ideology, whatever it is. Why I am telling you about this is, I know the Working Journalists Act, how it came into being, how much struggle, some people had to do to get certain benefits for the working journalists. It took many years of struggle, but today, it's on the statute book. But I tell you, it is not working. It has no meaning, it has no relevance, because the contract system has brought in havoc, and there is no job security. You can imagine, of course, I will come back to that a little later to tell you what is the ground level, ground zero situation. The contract system has made the entire, Working Journalists Act redundant, useless. Then there is another issue. It is all, the same old issues, but the velocity of the issues. That's what I wanted to tell you. The situation is turning out to be very grave. The stranglehold of advertisers on media contents, it has also affected the freedom of choice of the media persons. So it is the advertiser who decides what news story should go inside. It was there earlier. Now it is becoming more and more blatant and also crude. There are, again, another issue is use of archaic laws against media persons. See, there are many archaic laws which are used against media. You must be reading all those things. It has become a regular phenomenon over the years. Since independence, it has been used, and in fact, to tell you, the very same leaders who vouched for press freedom, they were the first persons to see that the press freedom was curtailed immediately after independence. I don't want to take names, but I tell you, these are the hard facts that we will have to understand. Because reading history is very important, because history is the actually forerunner of future. So you must understand how it is like. And we have to fight against it. One more problem which I am wondering is the Right to Information Act. See, it was introduced with good intentions, but today I don't know how far it is effective. I believe that where there is dynamic, where there are dynamic media, I think there should be greater right to information. Unfortunately, it is getting restricted over the years in the name of so many things which you are all aware of. The watchdog function. The watchdog function, how far we are the watchdogs of the system. It is because of this dilution of the Right to Information Act, I believe that the watchdog function has become very, very weak. This is where I struggle with the very idea. And this is also responsible for the death of investigative journalism in India. There is not much. Whatever you see as investigative journalism is only superficial. It is not there. When a system is hegemonic, I'm using of Antonio Gramsci, and this is where we all worried about. And it is a field day for the hegemonic forces all over the world, and India is no exception. And of course, there have been some sincere efforts on some media persons or by some media persons that have saved us from the despair that we are undergoing. So this is quite important because all over the world, media have been trying to survive, and this survival instinct is one of the factors that is responsible for the meek performance of the media. So we do not know. Wherever I go, I always make a reference to how the media are being labeled, from the watchdog to the lapdog and to the mad dog transition. Of course, this is not told by anybody Indian. It was told by some American scholars. So this is where I have to understand that we have to struggle some more to survive, and the existence part of it becomes quite obvious. The contribution of Indian media to the development of personality cult, it is anti-democratic. Unfortunately, since independence, even before independence, we started projecting certain personalities as godly figures. So that's why whenever I talk about Gandhi, I always tell that don't look at Gandhi as a godly person. Look at him as a saintly person try to analyze his merits and demerits in terms of his contribution, even as a person, then you will have a greater understanding of Gandhi. So this is where I think there should be real, assessment of the people. So the personality cult is becoming quite obvious. Most probably it is because of our past, our social system, and all those things. I do not want to go into the detail about it, but today when I read about cine stars being, projected as godly people, I believe there is some problem with us. So this is what makes some of us, seriously thinking people worry about the future of media. When it comes to professional ethics and morality, the challenge before Indian media is to maintain the ethicality and integrity. I do not want to go deep into this because all of you know what is happening. And the only one thing is how far the media persons have remained unattracted by the baits offered by different waters. That is, it can be a beautiful subject for serious research. I was just joking in one of my classes that journalism is no longer journalism, it is public relations. But public relations, the profession has become virtually event management, which is also nothing but the new avatar of mass communication. The issue of alternative journalism. Yes, India had some kind of alternative journalism, and it has right now. But the scenario is confusing because in India, we can't apply the same parameters which we apply in other countries, particularly the Western parameters, to our alternative journalism. Alternative journalism is not merely the voice of dissent, it is also the voice of the distressed sections of the society, the weak sections of the society. That's where I think there should be more and more of such kind of mass communication. Of course, I can understand one medium that can take care of these people is the new media. The new media can be a good alternative for the people who want to express themselves, because their issues cannot be understood by the mainstream people. Why I am telling is, dissent for the sake of dissent is also okay because it is the crux of democracy. But my issue is what kind of alternative journalism we should have to serve those sections of the society. This is where I believe the survival rate of alternative publications and alternative media, it is very dismal. The reason, this is my observation, because we are into a system of economic system, into an economic system which is called as crony capitalism. It is crony capitalism is devoid of any moral or ethical consideration. So in such a situation, my worry is how can the alternative media can survive. The media are always susceptible to the pressure tactics used by both the government and the corporate sector. So this is quite a challenge in India because we are in transition. We can't say that we are a mature democracy the way some countries are mature. Of course, even those countries with 100 years of independence, sometimes we wonder whether they are also mature. You can understand to whom I am referring to. The media uses support to ensure independence of the media is conspicuously absent in India. This is very important because this is where serious media-minded people they should think over, and then perhaps they may come up with some solutions. To be precise, in India, media communication is today considered as an assembly line manufacturing industry to the most extent, because we are manufacturing entertainment, which is called manufacturing of culture. I think we are also manufacturing news and views. So when I see these things happening, when news becomes a manufacturing industry, media become a manufacturing industry, then the other things which we have been talking of may not have any relevance. And we are also talking about competition for user attention, media audience attention. You see, it is people are going for an overdrive only for statistical purposes. Whether it is real or not, we do not know. It is only in the case of television in particular, I must say the TRP. This is only for the patronage of advertisements and the government. So should we not think always of a society which is different, a society, a peaceful and equitable society, that is where I think the real challenge exists. And have you ever thought of peace journalism or non-violent communication of any kind? People have already practiced it as part of alternative journalism, alternative to crime-oriented media. Do the questions here, I think I will leave these questions to you to ponder over. The first thing is, do people accept this kind of journalism? It is a riddle. If people have a different taste, if they want to read about crime, how can we change their taste? It is always said, junk food is always attractive. It is not good for health, but it is always interesting. Then the next question is, with digital and online reading, whether print media in India will survive in the long run. This is another question because, post-COVID situation, it is all online. So this is where we have to think of. Then the next question is, with the hybridization of technology and the arrival of hypermedia, will conventional electronic media like radio and television survive in the present form? This is quite important because I always, some people call conventional media as traditional media. The Western people do not understand the difference between conventional media and traditional media. They use the term because their understanding is different. The next question is, with customized communication becoming popular with new devices, what will be the future of the entire media world like? So this is an important question I believe that all of us will have to think of. Because digital literacy is becoming a forced imposition. It is enforced because the situation is becoming difficult for the conventional media. So how far, we can make them survive? Then the next question is, should not media houses support media literacy campaigns for their performance audit? You see, this is quite important. I believe that this is also a challenge for media to get themselves audited by others. When we are the people preaching morals to others in the society, should we not get ourselves evaluated by the users, media users? This is very important. And coming back to media education, which I said almost one century old, we have to think of that also, because till date media houses never bothered that much, even though they have their own media institutes, not bothered about making the media instruction in the country different, because we know that today the universities and other institutions supply enormous manpower to the media industry. So we have to tell them to take interest and initiatives to properly select media education in the country. I don't want to talk much about the media education, its quality. With my 40 plus years of standing as a teacher, as an academician, I know what are the real issues in media education. Some of my comments may become controversial. I do not want to say anything right now. In this context, I would like to say that improving media education is not $1 million issue, it is a $1 zillion issue. This is where I believe we have to be quite, serious about it. The possible future challenges. I have talked about the existing challenges. I will just go through a little faster about what could be the future challenges. One is cartelization. I tell you, the world over, the number of media houses is decreasing. That means there is a tendency to have monolithic media houses. It is becoming a reality in the western part of the world. Slowly, I believe it will enter into India also. The only saving grace is we have too many languages that they will have to fiddle with. Maybe they will see that it is the Western media companies may feel that it is not wise, but already there is an indication that within India there are some financially strong houses which have already started investing heavily in the media industry, and they have already taken over many of them. And the next one is, which I have already mentioned, serious competition from digital media. This is quite important because people are talking about the death of print. I don't know how far this can become true, but some people are telling everything is going to be digital and virtual, so we shall not talk about. Then The most important point is hypermediacy. Hypermedia, I have already talked about it. And the decline in professionalism, when it becomes more and more pronounced, can we expect that it happens because most of the media users are going to become prosumers. They are producers as well as consumers. They produce contents for themselves. Now I will be talking about the most important part of Indian journalism, media, that is death of idealism and ideology. Today there is no ideology. For me, whatever may be the ideology, right or wrong, that is very important. So it makes you a thinking person. And the other one is idealism. Except the idealism of making money, there is no other idealism. This is how unfortunate. You may find me very cynical, but our truth is always different. It makes people cynical. It is said, a person who tells truth will not have many friends. So maybe telling truth is also a sin these days. And this loss of ideology and idealism, most probably it started early, but it became very pronounced when the media houses, particularly print, when they went for a price war. You know what happened during the price war? I don't know whether it was real or surreal. What is the next course of action for media professionals, people who are media spirited? I don't want to say professionals or some other thing directly. Media spirited people. I think all of you know that there is a new branch of journalism that is being propagated, advocated by scholars like Shelton Gunaratne and others. It is called mindful journalism. Mindful journalism, it talks of a different kind of journalism. That is, you must understand, it doesn't advocate competition. Competition is replaced by cooperation because it says competition has brought in, a world which is totally crime-ridden. Of course, it has got its own philosophical base in Buddhism, but to me it appears, even though it is highly idealistic and it may not be very easily implementable, but at least you can have a solace in finding something new in the concept of mindful journalism. It advocates peace. It advocates non-violence. It advocates truth. Go back to Gandhiji. This is what Gandhiji said, decades and decades ago. So why Gandhiji is becoming relevant when we are talking about corporate media, when we are talking about, profit making, the challenges are rooted in our greed. Gandhiji said, this is the problem of when the world becomes greedy, there will be violence in the society. I may sound philosophical, I may sound different, but friends, I tell you, at some point of time, from the hustle bustle of our professional or academic activities, we have to think in a different way. So if we can think in a different way, there are many other issues before Indian media. I have taken only the main problems which even the press commissions have dealt with. My only, description is the different context which they never expected. They never expected that print media could be facing an existential problem. But today, I believe there is a serious existential problem. More than the media, I believe it is a problem of the media persons. You must be knowing that these days hundreds and hundreds, or I should say thousands of media persons have been retrenched. They have been thrown out into the streets. Where will they go? What will happen to their future life? And most of them are not so young. Many of them have crossed 40 and some of them are into their 50s and 60s. So this is the real challenge, post-COVID challenge for media and media persons. So how much we can think of a solution is the real issue right now. Friends, I can go on talking without break, but I believe that I have given you some food for thought, where I believe that all of us as media spirited people should think of solutions to some of these grave problems. Because when media are no longer the media of our imagination, so this becomes a problem. This is a real problem, and how we are going to face the challenges, I think all of you should ponder over. I believe I have taken enough of your time, and I thank Professor B.K. Ravi, Dr. Sanjeev Raj, Prashant, and others who are responsible for in spite of technological glitch we faced. I believe that you have been able to hear me properly, and perhaps you can, if you have certain queries, you are always welcome to be forthcoming. I requested Dr. B.K. Ravi to continue with the proceedings further. Professor B.K. Ravi.
Sir, thank you very much, sir. It was an excellent presentation. I think you touched almost all the subjects. You explained the challenge before Indian media. You spoke of idea of freedom. You spoke of freedom within and without. You spoke of real journalism. You spoke of how we are imitating the Western newspapers. Now you also said media is becoming the manufacturing industry. You also spoke about the consumerism. You spoke about the newstainment. You spoke about watchdogs, RTI Act, media education, and you also spoke of death of ideology and idealism. Sir, it was an excellent presentation from your side. We are, on behalf of Department of Communication, Bangalore University, we are very grateful to you, sir. My dear friends, Professor K.V. Nagaraj, at the last moment, he lost his connection over Zoom. So we did not want to disappoint a very huge friends of ours, more than 300, 350 people are, they were eager to listen to Professor Nagaraj. We never wanted to disappoint you. So we connected him through audio. So we're very sorry about it. There was some technical error and somehow we could make it. We are very grateful for Professor KVN for delivering his lecture through audio. Professor, we have some questions, sir. If you kindly permit me, we'll take some questions, sir.
Okay, fine.
Sir, the first question is, sir, what is your opinion on political ownership of media in India?
Political ownership is not a new phenomenon. It was there, and during 1980s, the 90s, people did not accept the political ownership much. But the unfortunate aspect is, the political ownership doesn't exist, but the owners of the media are becoming political. That is the problem now. So that's where I believe that that's what I said.
Yes.
There should be a media literacy campaign to correct the course of action by the media.
Yes.
Because media, they are the watchdog of the society.
Yeah.
But who will watch the watchdog?
Yeah.
I think we, the people of India, we, the users of media in India,
Yes.
we should take this task of, telling people that, if you want to be objective, of course, the whole thing is, there is I had written quite a long ago, the Calcutta University Journal published my article. That is, the title was quite different. Objectivity is dead. Long live objectivity. That is, objectivity is dead in journalism, Indian journal. So what is happening is we are imitating whatever is happening in other parts of the world. This political leaning of the media is not uncommon, but the political ownership is uncommon. But in India also, I believe that people will not accept the political ownership. Some experiments were there. I know some of the one state which is a little bit different is Kerala. In Kerala, the political ownership is accepted for the simple reason people of Kerala are also highly politically conscious. So that's where I believe this question should be from Parsa, if I am correct.
Yes.
It should be from
Yes, sir. You're right, sir. Yes.
Now, this is something which is unique about Kerala. Because I know some of the editors of Kerala newspapers who were close to me. And we have discussed all these things, but you can't help it. If you call it as a trend, it is a trend. If you call it as an aberration, it is an aberration. But in the conventional wisdom of journalists of the past, political ownership of journalism is not good. But when it exists, I believe you have to live with it.
Yes,
It's your own freedom of choice.
Yes.
That's what I see.
So thank you,
Yes.
sir. There is one more question from Suparna Naresh from Christ University. Sir, will hyper-localization of news reporting save newspapers today from closure?
Can you repeat the question, please?
This is a question from Suparna Naresh from Christ University.
I know her. Tell me.
Sir, will hyper-localization of news reporting save newspapers today from closure? That's the question.
Okay. It is also an issue right now. Hyper-localization, not only newspapers. I am telling you, I can talk about the television channels also. You say, if there is a shop inauguration in a particular city, the local cable TV channel or some other television channel, will report it. We were talking about community journalism earlier. For some people, it is community, event, and it should be reported. I don't say it is wrong, but the problem is, when we started, using technology for the different editions of big newspapers, I can tell you, big newspapers, the local editions were full of local information. Why? I will answer this question. To be honest with you, this was not with any, high motive. the motive was to promote their channel or a newspaper as a medium of advertising. So they thought that they can collect advertisement from by supplying local information to the local people, the retail stores where certain things are sold. I will tell you, it was an advertising strategy more than a journalistic strategy. And when things are going wrong, when the entire economic system is facing problem, naturally, there will be a problem for these publications or media channels. That's what I believe.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. So there is one question from Simon Varghese. He is from National School of Journalism. His question is, please talk more about the person who spoke about pseudo events.
Oh, Daniel Boorstin.
Yeah.
Okay. You see, Daniel Boorstin was the chief librarian of the Library of the American Congress. And he was not only a librarian, but he was also a historian, because he wrote about the history of the United States of America. But he was also interested in, the media operations, media functions and performance. So he is the one who talked about the pseudo events, where people will be going in front of the White House or the Capitol Hill, wait for the media people to come and make demonstrations, shout slogans, and after 5-10 minutes they go away. It was all for publicity. It was all, what he called as, these were all pseudo events. It is very common in the West that such things happen, but perhaps in India also we have the political parties arranging for people's participation in rallies. This is also a kind of pseudo event, but well organized. And he is the one, Daniel Boorstin, he has written, the title of the book is The Images. It is a 3-volume book. I think Ms. Varghese can find out all the details about Daniel Boorstin if he goes to Google. Today Google is God, Google is a teacher.
Google is Guru. Google Guru.
There is something called, there is something called as Googleology. So Googleology, if he is a student of Googleology, he can find out everything about Daniel Boorstin. He is the one who talked about, Disneyization, and also he must also read about Umberto Eco, the famous Italian scholar, who talked about the hyper reality presented by the Disneyland. This is where I think Umberto Eco and Daniel Boorstin converge. This is quite interesting. It is also said one CEO of the Disneyland Corporation said, there is no world without a Disney. So you can understand how they have tried to create an imaginary world, a dreamland for the common people. And this is what exactly the media are doing the world over. They are creating a false world, through virtual images of the beautiful things that do not exist. So this is where, and now I have used a new word for mass communication studies, media studies, mediology, like Googleology. I think I have used the word mediology. If you are, I think all of us are students of mediology.
Yes. Thank you,
this
sir.
is what I.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. There is one question from Ranjan Kumari. She is the student of Krupanithi Group of Institution. Her question is, what aspects should be considered in the development of a report in the context of local journalism?
She's talking about reporting.
Reporting.
Of course, I was once upon a time a reporter for the Deccan Herald group of newspapers for a brief period. I can recollect, but the whole issue here, I just spoke about the Western news values. When I talked about Western news values, I was very specific that she must be knowing what are these news values. Here, what I suggest is, when I talk about the community, the local events, there are two aspects. One is the event as such, how far it is important, how far it is relevant to the local community. And the second one is importance to personalities. At the local level, you must understand, suppose you are reporting from a village, if there is a function in the village, what you will do? Will you simply say that the event was very good? The local compulsions are the persons who are on the dais, they would like to see their photographs, their images on the television screen, their names being announced over radio, and they ask for it. And you can't. This is a strange paradox. You can't leave them out because they are your users. And, sometimes they are the people who really matter, in the sense they may influence some official, some minister to get you advertisements. So you use your brain on the spot and do whatever you can do. See, this is, whatever I speak of sometimes, I always speak at the issues at the national level. But when you go to the ground level, particularly reporting, many of my friends are reporters at district headquarters like Marikara, Madikeri, Mandya. I know what they say. And I have already, written so much about the district level journalism. I have spoken and I have conducted workshops also for that. I know the news value is what you think as news value in that particular context. Don't go by your academic, background or academic instructions. These are all academic. Local, that is where you have to use your mind. This is where, mindful journalism, when I said, I tell you, more than that, I can tell you one incident, Professor Ravi and in Nagaland, there is a beautiful type of journalism. There are, if you write something about Mr. X, that you have to publish what Mr. X also says. If you publish the security forces, you should also publish what militants say. Both versions. This is where Nagaland practices a different kind of journalism, and it all happens in the northeastern states, most of them, because everybody's voice should be presented. Otherwise, the consequences will be serious. The community will not accept you.
Yeah.
I think I have answered that question.
Yes, sir. Excellent, sir. Excellent, sir. Sir, Mamata BM, she has a question. Why media project science stars? Why they don't? Why they ignore poets, novelists, and achievers in the society?
That's again the same question. Poets do not make news. What is crime? That is what he said. Western human interest. This is where I talked about alternative journalism and mindful journalism. where people from all strata of the society are given their due. But unfortunately, unless something serious happens to a poet, or sometime if he gets some international X or Y, that whoever he or she, gets an international award, or if something, if somebody commits suicide, such kind of stories get priority. The real achievements of the people, not only poets, I will tell you, even the achievement of a school teacher, they don't find much mention in the mainstream media, because following the same old pattern of giving importance to people who really matter, in the sense, people with power.
Yeah.
People without power, actually they are the most powerful people, those who are without power, but the media, they do not understand this.
Yes.
That is the issue.
Yes. Thank you, sir. There is one question from Dr. Shilpa. She is assistant professor of Acharya Institute of Graduate Studies. Her question is, isn't survival of fittest made the media organizations to compromise on ethics and fourth estate values as existence is important amidst competition? Are we not to be blamed equally for choice of content while viewing, which is also encouraging the media houses to provide irresponsible contents?
Shall I start with the second part?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
The second part is, it is addiction.
Yeah.
There is something called as, pluralistic ignorance in media studies. That is, we think that people do not know anything. We media people know everything. So that's why, we think that by giving crime news, by giving, news which is not soft, which is always hard, we think that we attract the people. Partially it is true, but what we have done is, over a period of time, we have made them addicts to crime news. I tell you, when the Christian Science Monitor started refusing to publish crime stories, people were laughing at it. I know Christian Science Monitor continued to do that because it had some financial backing from some religious institutions. But do you think that they continue to do that for a long time? No. See, the question is existence, survival. So the survival, that's what I talked about, intra-media competition and intermedia competition. Yeah. This is, taking us to a different situation. A different situation in the sense where, we presume that by doing this, we cannot survive. I will give you one example of a newspaper published from Bangalore. This is a real example. You know that the Deccan Herald group of newspapers, because of certain reasons, the film industry not giving advertisements to the Deccan Herald group.
Yes.
So that they survived for years. They were able to, tell, yes, even without you, we can. But how many, in today's world, how many media houses can survive? I tell you, perhaps she doesn't know what is happening with regard to television channels published, which are here in the North Indian states. Hundreds of television channels come up and hundreds of television channels pulled up. It is because every Lalaji wants to have a television channel. Yeah. Right. And how long they survive? Not for long. Yes. So it is a fact that one is the survival instinct, another is in the name of competition, which also leads all of us to the real motive, that is making huge profits.
Yes.
You know, I can tell you, I will not name the media house. There is a media house in the country which has tons and tons of money, but they have sacked hundreds and hundreds of their media persons, their staff. What? So you can understand.
Yes.
So this is a real issue. That's why I am talking about mindful journalism, where I know it is a kind of illusion, even though it is a wishful thought by the Buddhist monks. But at some point of time, I think we people will have to listen to their conscience. But unfortunately, that conscience is dead.
Yeah. Yes.
Can we say it is suspended animation? I leave it to her to decide.
Yes. Okay. Thank you, sir. There is one question from Dr. Simi Varghese, Associate Professor of Department of Communication and Journalism, Prajyoti Niketan College, Pudukad, Thrissur, Kerala. Her question is, today manufactured content rules the roost in media and not genuine content, irrespective of their varied dissemination platforms. How do you comment?
I have already commented. Everything is being manufactured to suit the commercial objectives of the media house. So there is no ethicality, there is no morality. The only intention is to make money. I tell her a joke. There was a famous Latin poet called Horace, and he a beautiful elegy on the death of Cleopatra. But he never visited Alexandria. He was far away from the place of action. Some people asked him, were you there when she got bitten by the cobra?
Yeah.
He said, no, I was not there. Then how can you write so beautifully as if you were present there? He said, gentlemen, I have a belly. I have to fill it.
Yes.
So my philosophy is make money.
Yes.
Otherwise also make money.
Yes.
You can understand.
Yes. Sir, there is one question from one of your students. She is Smita from Mangalore. She says, thank you, sir. I find it like sitting in your class once again. You have expressed some of the hard truths of today's media. Her question is,
I think
too many players in media, though oligopolistic and needed for democracy, it was created a huge jumble of irrelevant information which confuses and emasculates the masses than helps them to act. What is the role of a teacher in this manufacturing industry?
I tell her, she was also a professional for some time. I think she knows it.
Yes.
And the issue is, there are many players. The problem is, it is not only the duplication of the content, it is also the multiplication of the content, and too many players weighing for the same cake. I tell you, what has happened in the West is, slowly all those were devoured by the big fish. The small fish was eaten by the big fish. And I am expecting the same thing to happen in India in the next 10 years. I don't know whether I will be able to see such a bad thing. You see, the only thing is, in a democracy, you cannot stop people from, having their own publications or television channels. They have the right to. The only thing is, how many of them will survive in the long run? That is the question. With more investment required for media houses, I believe slowly the big fish, I know, I don't want to mention the big fish, perhaps people can decipher it, I believe the British will take over all the media houses, merge them, which is happening in the case of Europe, in the case of the United States of America, in the case of Australia. The disappearance of media houses. In the world, there were 37 to 38 big media houses. Can you believe today there are only 7 big media houses in the world? And if the trend comes to India, I believe this kind of trend will not be there too many players in the field. But my worry is, somebody will have something over the mind of the people. That is controlling the minds of the people.
Yes.
The latest nomenclature given to mass communication, it is mind management.
Oh.
It is not journalism.
Yes, sir.
It is mind management.
Yes.
So if someone, that's what I talked of cartelization. Cartelization happens when there are only 2 or 3 players.
Yes.
This is what I predicted. Perhaps this will happen unless, we go back to the old system of management, which is not possible right.
So,
When someone said, newspaper is a product, a television channel content is a product, and everything is entertainment. Birth is entertainment, death is entertainment, but life is miserable.
yes.
Am I correct?
Yes, sir. Excellent. Excellent.
Okay.
So there is one question from Dr. Marlin Abraham, RSN College,
Okay.
Koilandi, Kozhikode.
Oh.
Sir, our community is also becoming very much equal to the foreign communities. How can we change its orientation?
Is it possible for her to change it? You see, it all depends upon the people. It is the people at the helm of affairs, at least 1 or 2, should act as, checks and balances. Unfortunately, in the rat race for commercial exploitation, making more money, all of us are idealistic. All of us would like to be saints. In fact, everyone wants to be a Christ or a Gandhi. But is it possible? Let us think. Only then I think we can talk about, stopping people from doing. But, what I suggest is there should be a movement.
Yes.
Movement by the people.
Yes, sir.
Particularly, media students.
Yes, sir.
They should act, particularly media students should act as vanguards of the media industry.
Yes, sir.
You see, they are the future journalists, media persons. If they can imbibe, but I know it is very difficult.
Yes.
It is very difficult.
Yes.
I know the stories of my own students, hundreds of them across the country.
Sir.
The stories, what they tell me,
Yes.
it is, that's why I said idealism is dead.
Yes.
So let her think of her own unique ways. If she has got, let her be very creative. I believe she can offer us some solution.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Because it's all,
Yes, yes.
distressed and
Yes, yes.
we have all become delinquent people thinking about me.
Yes. Thank you, sir. There is one question from Bhagyalakshmi Padaki from Germany. Sir,
Okay.
do you think in spite of commercial interests, the contribution of Indian media is negligible?
The contribution of?
Do you think in spite of commercial interests, the contributions of Indian media is negligible?
I can't say 100% negligible because I know, up to 1970s, 1980s, there were people who contributed for the freedom of the media, freedom of the society. I mean, freedom of the people. But my worry is this is the post-liberalization phenomenon. I'm talking of post-1990s. Not that 100% it is commercial. There are, which I mentioned, alternative publications, alternative media. They are doing a wonderful job. But the problem is, some of them, they have taken dissent as a prerequisite. No, it cannot be. Dissent, okay, I understand.
Yes, sir.
But there are certain things, you can call a spade, but at the same time, if something good is done, you must have that, that mind to appreciate.
Yes, sir.
That is where I believe, a balanced way of managing public affairs through the columns of newspapers or television channels is what required.
Yes.
So unfortunately, what is happening is, it is becoming one-sided.
Yeah.
So I don't say it is negligible. They have done it, of course, to certain extent, but not to a large extent. I can tell her stories, the inside stories of media houses, but I believe it requires another session. But
Yes,
the only
sir.
thing is, I can't name them.
Yes.
They will sue me if I tell the names.
Yes. Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. And there's one question from Dr. Sukumar Pal from Vishwabharati, Kolkata. What action could be taken if media publishes any inflammatory news?
There are certain, regulatory bodies, and also the law is on the side of the person aggrieved. Even though justice is not going to be given immediately, one can file a case of defamation if he or she is affected. Otherwise, we have a toothless tiger called Press Council of India. He can, she can approach. But I tell you, in the law, it is very difficult to, stop them unless, there is some body which takes some tough action. In the present scenario, people are going scot-free because if you go to the court, you will not get justice immediate. It takes time. And, one can go up to the Supreme Court from the lower level to, so you may not be able to live that longer to get justice. But sometimes it happens. Justice is also given if a person is affected. But inflammatory writing, it is the people who should decide. And in our society, you see, basically, we Indians are emotional people.
Yeah.
We get carried away by what is written by the publications or what is shown on the TVs.
Yeah.
Even if it is manipulated, morphed, we think that it is correct. But I believe it is the people who should, start some kind of campaign against such publications. And, there are some people who make money out of all these things. This is what we call as yellow journalism.
Yeah.
That's where I think people like Sukumar should come forward. And no, I don't want him to form a vigilante group. I want him to form a group of media-spirited, conscientious people so that they can tell the truth to the world.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. Sir, we have one question from Dr. S.T. Ramachandra. He wants to know how to educate TV media to be more effective and popularized during COVID period.
I think I have been watching. Unfortunately, I never used to watch TV when I was in Mizoram. And also, I used to travel quite a lot till this COVID pandemic, started striking. So for the last 3.5 months, I am at home. And in the evening hours, I have no choice except to watch some channels for news. And I believe they do not know how to present news. They are repetitive, and I believe this is where I call as professionalism. All of them should be taught how to write news, how to make proper presentation. It is not emotional. They use such words which I cannot understand. It is not sober journalism. They talk about shameless politicians, shameless. Yes, you can tell in a different, every day if you use the same word, people become, they become immune to all these things. Not from COVID, but from these television channels.
Yeah.
So I really suggest that we have to train them properly. This is not the way.
Yeah.
It is horrendous. I agree with him.
Yes.
It is quite problematic.
Yes. Sir, we'll take up last two questions, sir, because
Okay.
it's already late. I will take last two questions. There is one question from Amrita Balakrishnan, from research
Okay.
scholar of Central University of Tamil Nadu. Do you think that constructive journalism would be able to meet the watchdog functions in a country like India?
Absolutely. Constructive journalism is what we require. That is what Gandhiji tried to do. But the problem was his was not real journalism, it was different kind of journalism. So if we become constructive opposition, when there is no opposition, it is the media which should become the constructive opposition. So what she says is correct, but the only question is, in the rat race for making money, how much scope will be there for constructive journalism by the mainstream media houses? That is the real issue. If she has got some idea of how constructive journalism can be done at the grassroots level or at the regional level, I believe such a thing would be okay. I have a suggestion for all the participants. I don't know how far it is feasible. Should we not have a media house which can publish newspapers, own television channels, funded totally by the public, people? Some well-meaning personalities can take the stewardship and run it for on the rotation basis, so that we constitution. What I mean is, in the today's jargon, crowdfunding of media.
Yes.
That's where I think there is a possibility of.
Yes.
I don't say 100%, but to some extent, we can do constructive journalism.
Yes. So last question. This is from Dr. Satya Prasad, College of Applied Sciences, Muscat, Oman.
Okay.
On the question of performance audit for media by media users, is there not a danger that such audit can be biased or manipulated by media houses or even by media rivals?
Well, there is always a danger, but fortunately, there are people. You have to believe, you have to trust people's sensibilities. So, normally, nobody is against a media house unless he is prejudiced because of certain personal reasons. Such a minority will always be there. I believe the majority of the people, the common people, are media-spirited people, will not be biased. They will give their frank opinion. Perhaps the existence of such a idea, I think, will make the media houses little more watchful. little more cautious. This is what I believe. In every plan, in every strategy, there is always a possibility of some kind of bias. In research, we always think of avoiding researchers' bias or bias per se. So similarly, we can also do performance audit by not only by media users, but I think most of the well-meaning persons are all media users, and they can take stock of the situation and do the performance audit. Ultimately, I tell you, everything depends upon the people. If they reject the medium or the publication, I believe people will be people in the media will take note of it. One thing I tell you is, if there is no approval by the people, I believe that particular channel, particular publication will perish in the long run.
Yes. So thank you, sir. In spite of the technical snag, I think we had an excellent session, sir. On behalf of Department of Communication, Bangalore University, we are very grateful to Professor K.V. Nagaraj, the former Pro-Chancellor of Assam University, Silchar. Sir, we are very grateful to you, sir. This was one of the most successful sessions where more than 350 participants listened to your lecture and your question and answer session. And this version is recorded and it will be available on YouTube. And interested the student, because we are getting quite a lot of questions. The questions are pouring in. There are a lot of queries, and some people who have missed this lecture, you can listen to Professor Nagaraj on YouTube. Sir, once again, I thank you very much, sir, Professor K.V. Nagaraj, for your valuable time and your excellent lecture, sir.
Thank you all. I thank all the participants. I wish them the best.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Dear friends, I also take this opportunity to thank my two colleagues, Dr. N. Sanjeev Raj and Dr. Shaileshri. And I also like to recognize the presence of Professor A.S. Balasubramanya and Professor Amjad Ahmad. And I see a lot of senior professors from different universities, my friends from different parts of the country, different parts of the globe. We are very grateful for all of you. A lot of our journalism teachers from different undergraduate colleges, from different universities, and from different media organizations, media professionals are also here. And a lot of researchers, social scientists are here. We are very grateful for your roaring response. We are I think this is the first time we have got such a huge registration from different parts of the country and different parts of the globe. And maybe the whole of this week, this is a 6-day international webinar on the resilience of media in the times of global crisis, challenges and opportunities. So we thank you very much for all of you. And tomorrow, one more expert in development communication. He's one of the renowned professors who is recognized throughout the globe. And I'm very happy to tell you that he's also the alumni of Department of Communication, Bangalore University. Dr. Srinivas Melkote from Bowling Green University from United States of America will be delivering a lecture exactly by 6 p.m. So I request all of you to join. Let us listen to Dr. Srinivas Melkote tomorrow. So again, once again, I thank all of you for your participation. I think Professor Shiv Chittappa from University of Mysore, and if I go on reading quite a lot of names, there are quite a lot of, and I see Dr. Malgatti, I saw Raghavendra, I saw Prashant Malur, and it's a very big team. If I go on, I saw Kumar Swami from Gulbarga University, I saw Yatish from Janapad University, and there are quite a lot of, I saw Gopa Kumar, I think there are quite a lot of teachers. Satish Kumar from Coimbatore University is a very big contingent. So please forgive me if I have, and Sibanti Padmanabh, there are quite a lot of people. Please forgive me if I have not named any one of you. And thank you very much for your roaring response. And all my friends, let us meet tomorrow exactly by 6 p.m. to listen to Professor Srinivas Melkote. Thank you very much. Namaste. Stay safe. All the best. Namaste.